Acorn is a great opportunity to meet with other people. It's a networking without the awkwardness. Everybody gets to share their experiences, brainstorm. It's almost like another brains trust.
I've been coming to Acorn now for the last month actually, every Thursday, and it's been great. I've been meeting new faces, new people, and they've been great and giving me some good ideas.
Technology is changing how, when and where we work. Council has started Acorn, a co-working space for entrepreneurs and business people to meet, share and collaborate. Acorn is currently a trial at Sam Merrifield Library with space for 15 businesses in 3 sessions each Thursday, and includes a program of business speakers to share their experiences. If you're interested, visit our website to reserve your place.
My name's Laura and I care for my 14-year-old son Christian. Christian's been diagnosed with autism. We found with Christian that he wasn't speaking at the age of 2 and we were very concerned. He doesn't speak much now at all. My average day as a carer is just go from the morning. When Christian gets up at 5 a.m, I'm up with him just to supervise and make sure everything's okay and that he's safe. There's no 2 days for me that are the same. There's no minute that it's the same. It could change from being happy to an absolute volcano eruption. But we try to keep him as happy and content as he can be and explain to him how his day will look. With Christian, he will communicate to us through either putting on some music and making us interact with him, or playing the piano and asking us to sing with him by making us stand next to him, and we just all come together as a family.
My name is Isaiah and I care for my brother Christian. Having a connection with my brother is very special. With music, I play the piano and he sings.
In the early days when people would stare at me, for instance in the supermarket when Christian was having a little tantrum or whatever he was having, I found it really upsetting and it really made me feel uncomfortable. So just offering your help or saying, is everything okay, has such an impact on one's life when they're having that moment with their child.
I wrote a song called My Brother that was for Christian, and I wrote it because I wanted to express out all my feelings and show everyone that how I feel about having a brother with autism. You're so affectionate and no one can change that. You are loving and kind to everyone around you. When you smile, it makes me so happy. When I get angry, remember I will always love you. I love you.
This is how we get special.
This year we're celebrating 50 years of library service within Moonee Valley. And whilst we have 5 wonderful public libraries, we're always looking to make books more accessible to the community. We're building little libraries across the city, sponsored by Moonee Valley Libraries, which provide easy access to books for readers of all ages and backgrounds. We want to encourage a love of reading and lifelong learning within our community.
Not only do these little libraries support literacy for people of all ages, but they also foster a sense of community and they encourage an idea about recycling. The Aberfeldy Men's Shed have taken on this project of building these wonderful little book houses, and they've done an amazing job utilising recycled materials wherever they can. The Moonee Valley Libraries are really happy to support a project like this, which has community, sustainability and literacy at its heart.
I think it's better to walk to school because we can get out, do some physical activity, look at the environment.
So what I like about walking to school
is that you get energised and you can talk to all your friends.
I feel awake from the fresh air and I'm not as tired and I'm ready to go to school. What makes walking to school really fun is that you can do it with mates and interact with other people, and you can find out things about other people that you don't know already.
After walking, I feel healthy and fresh and ready for the day.
I think that walking to school is fun because, especially now with all the active paths, I think that because the whole school's involved, you can walk with your friends and teachers sometimes.
Moonee Valley City Council engaged Kids Own Publishing to make this book with the children of the Avondale Heights Preschool. They have been walking, talking, looking, listening, and we've been making art with Verity, our artist. All of that content is gathered then and put into a book.
The reactions from the children for this project have been really warm and responsive. They have been so excited about being involved in the project.
And the most exciting thing about the book that is made by the children for the children of Moonee Valley is that we are going to be able to deliver this book to each one of our education and care services in Moonee Valley.
3.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everybody to the ordinary meeting of Council of the 13th of November 2018, which is just open. I'm very pleased to be here tonight, chairing my first meeting as Mayor. I would like to advise members of the public gallery that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the internet. The recording will also be available on Council's website. Gallery attendees are advised that their presence may be recorded. And I'd also like to request that members of the gallery please switch off your mobile phones to silent during tonight's meeting. On behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay respects to their spirits, ancestors, elders and community members past and present. We also extend this respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Councillors, I have received 3 apologies for tonight's meeting. Those apologies are from Councillor Serace, Councillor Nation and Councillor Sypek. Councillor Richard Lawrence is on leave of absence for this meeting. So we move on to confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I please have a mover and a seconder that the minutes from the ordinary meeting of Council held on Tuesday the 23rd of October 2018 and the statutory meeting held on the 30th of October be confirmed? Councillor Marshall? Sorry. Councillor
Yes,
Marshall?
no, I'm happy to move that they be accepted.
Thank you. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. Declarations of conflicts of interest. Councillor, does any one of you have a conflict of interest in any item on the agenda this evening? Councillor Byrne?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare an indirect conflict of interest on item 10.7 on tonight's agenda due to conflicting duties.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Any other councillor? No? Councillors, do we have any presentations this evening? I don't believe so. And nor have we received any petitions or joint letters to be tabled tonight. So I shall move on to public question time and will now ask CEO Brian Lancaster whether we have received any public questions, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have questions from 4 persons tonight. So the first question is from Deidre Bullen. I'll ask if Deidre's in the gallery. Deidre, would you like to come to the over there and just ask the questions, please? And the Director of City Works and the Director of Planning and Development will answer those questions.
Start with the elected.
Do you need a copy of your question? Yeah.
What strategies and programs have you put in place over the next 2 years to tackle gender equity in the following areas? Family violence. So we have established the Moonee Valley Family Violence. Oh yes, sorry, yeah, that's the response.
Sorry, three in there. That's my script to respond to you. Sorry, so yeah. We've established the Moonee Valley Family Violence Network to coordinate local responses to this issue, which includes representation from over a dozen service agencies and community organisations. We're also a regional partner in preventing violence together, the Western Region Strategy to Prevent Violence Against Women. And Moonee Valley has adopted an operational gender equity workplace position statement and coordinates a municipal 16 days of activism campaign annually, which is about to come up, and we'll see lots of people wearing orange, and the UN theme is Orange the World, End Violence Against Women and Girls. So we'll be hosting the Moonee Valley Family Violence Network Safe from Harm Forum on the 22nd of November, and we'll be lighting up the clock tower in orange for that period. Safe from Harm is a locally grown program providing legal service support to victims and perpetrators of family violence. The program is led by local community legal centres, which with council support have grown over the past 2 years to now be offered across all of Moonee Valley.
And for women in sport as well?
For Women in Sport, Council's delivering a major project called Ready, Set, Equity. And over the next 12 months, we'll increase the visibility, participation and profile of girls and women in sport within Moonee Valley, which will include representation of players, coaches, leadership and see girls involved in the decision-making roles. The project will involve case study videos, training for staff to build capacity in gender equity work, building awareness with our community around opportunities for female sports, working with local media to increase coverage of female sports, hosting a forum to explore opportunities and gaps that exist for girls and women in sport, and supporting clubs to embed gender equity principles in their policies. Council's also doing a biannual community grants program ongoing, and through that regularly support clubs to upgrade their facilities and run programs in a way to encourage female participation.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Deidre. The second lot of questions is from Helen Rod. Is Helen with us in the gallery tonight? Helen, will you please come to the lectern and ask your question, and the Director of Planning and Development will answer that question.
I'd also like to request a copy.
Sure.
Thanks. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm the facilitator with the Women's Leadership Program that Moonee Valley funds, and the women are in the gallery today. These couple of questions were a kind of a conglomeration of their questions. Thanks, Deirdre. Many families in Moonee Valley are considered large families with 3 or more children. Affordability and participation is a real issue for these families. How is Council planning for programs and accessibility measures for these families?
Thank you for your question through you, Madam Mayor. Council has identified 3 priority neighbourhoods, each demonstrating significant disadvantage, particularly for large families that have got children or adolescents. And Council's community development team provide a wide range of educational, recreation and developmental programs and activities for families across the municipality. These programs include free activities and events throughout the year, as well as an accessible fee structure for term programs. For example, supported playtime programs to both strengthen parenting skills and encourage early childhood development activities for under 5-year-olds is a free weekly program. The primary school holiday program for 5 to 12-year-olds includes sponsored places for families experiencing extreme disadvantage, and the youth drop-in program for homework programs for 5 to 18-year-olds are free. There's many other activities, including throughout Christmas we're going to have the Nidri Ferris wheel open for 3 weeks every day of the week, and that will be completely free. So we're very conscious of that need to reduce the economic barriers to participation.
My second question is, the leadership program has been concerned about the mental health and impact of loneliness and unemployment on older people 50 plus. What is Council doing to address this issue, and is Council considering affordability issues for these strategies?
Yes, we are running a number of programs through our libraries, through our men's sheds and at the Flemington Community Centre, particularly targeted at older residents. I don't really want to call 50 plus older, but it's middle age, I'd say. In addition, we've recently established a social support program stream through the biannual community grants program, where the majority of funds go to older groups to assist with regular activities. We also provide significant funding to Wingate Avenue Community Centre, Farnham Street Neighbourhood Learning Centre, to specifically target older residents in those communities.
Okay, thank you.
The third set of questions is from Edith Chen. Is Edith with us tonight? No.
She is. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Just read your question there. Thank you.
Thank you, the Chamber. The leadership program loves Council's 20 minutes city commitment, but there is a pressure on transport infrastructure. What is Council doing about it?
Thank you, Edith, for your questions. You'll appreciate that many of the public transport infrastructure works and services come through the state government. So Council is advocating very strongly to the state government for improvement of public transport networks and infrastructure in the city, and we encourage all residents to similarly advocate for improvements to that infrastructure and services.
Thank you.
And the final questions is from Luke Cherry. Luke, could you please come to the lectern and ask your questions, and the Director of City Services will respond to your questions.
Thank you very much. I've got two questions. They did have to be cut down a little bit due to the character limit of the questions in the format, but hopefully you'll get the gist. The first one is, they're both in relation to the proposed relocation of the Moonee Valley City Council depot. The first one, in abstract sense, if one of the families, and this was hoped that it would be to the councils, if one of the families was looking to rent a house and found a house worth $500,000, but it was going to cost them $250,000 of their own money to fix it up. And if the rest of their family that they'll be moving with thought that the house was completely unsuitable and didn't want to live there, would you advise them to rush in quickly and sign the lease, or to keep looking?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Mayor. I'm unable to comment on this situation. However, in terms of the lease for the proposed depot site, we're talking about an investment, something in the order of $2.5 million to bring the site to a standard that is fit for purpose. This is not an unreasonable amount to invest to ensure our workplaces are fit for purpose and staff have the necessary amenities. The sum includes the installation of items such as a wash bay, push pits for soil and mulch, and improved staff amenities, for example. It's normal practice on commercial leases of the type contemplated here for the tenant to undertake works on the site at their expense rather than the owner undertaking the works. Owners typically offer incentives of rent-free periods in order to secure long-term tenants. If this site was not to proceed any further, any future site or sites are going to still require a level of investment to make them fit for purpose, as they will no doubt have been used for purposes other than as a council depot. The exact cost of these works can only be determined once the site or sites have been identified. This is not an unusual situation in commercial property market, and as an analogy can be seen at Windy Hill, where significant capital improvements were made by the Essendon Football Club associated with their lease of the site to ensure the site is and was fit for purpose.
So I don't think I've got a right of reply. I'll move on. The second question is, when roughly 70 depot staff were asked the question specifically, do you support the depot moving to the proposed location? 56 provided a written response, and 55 of those, which is 98%, stated unequivocally no. I'll seek an indulgence and state there's actually been a unanimous resolution passed since then of 70 staff at the depot saying no on the basis of the suitability of the site. In light of that, how can Moonee Valley City Council possibly claim the site is suitable in their proposal to relocate these workers?
Thank you again for the question, and through you, Madam Mayor. The feedback forms provided by the staff have highlighted a number of concerns which can be broadly grouped into three categories. The lack of required infrastructure / facilities at the proposed site. This is all being addressed with the suggested investment of $2.5 million at the site to provide things like staff amenities, wash bay, improved security, etc. The second point was the impact on productivity due to the location of the site. The impact on productivity is an unknown at this point in time, as there are jobs which will take longer to get to and from, and others which they will get to and from faster. We have committed to the staff that there will be no job losses as a result of the productivity impact associated with the move, and nor will there be any impact on service standards for the community. The third area is the impact on staff personally in terms of increased travel time and changes to their personal circumstances, such as travel arrangement, childcare and after-school activities for their siblings. The relocation will no doubt have an impact on staff, and this is not lost on management. Our initial work on travel time suggests that 85 staff are worse off, with the worst of which being 18 minutes longer travel time. 67 are better off, the best of which is a 15-minute improvement, and there are 9 staff which have no change. We have not had discussions with staff about their individual circumstances and the impact of changes of these on the change in location. Thank you.
Thank you, Council, for your time.
Thank you for those questions. Thank you, Mr. Lambert. And we shall now move on to reports from special committees. We don't have any reports tonight. So our first report on the agenda tonight is 10.1, and it relates to the Council Plan 2017 to 2021, Quarter 1 Progress Report, July to September 2018. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Marshall?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm happy to move a motion in the form of the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cusack, thank you. Would you like to speak to the item, Councillor Marshall?
I will, because our council plan is one of our most important overarching documents, and what I really loved about this one, they can be a bit vague and not particularly helpful in terms of providing clear direction. I think our council plan really did. It had a range of different items set out, and this is basically a progress report on how we're going, and the answer is we're going well, because you can see that we are tracking very well with our implementation of various matters under the council plan. Just briefly, I'll mention a couple of them. We've delivered teen mental health first aid training at 3 schools in Moonee Valley, and provided youth counselling and case management services to 45 people. We have completed the Winter Street tree planting program, which is a great and very important program if we're going to achieve our 30% tree canopy cover. We partnered with Valley Carers to deliver the Caring for Carers program, celebrated NAIDOC Week. We have done a great upgrade of Queen's Park Pool and really revitalised the facilities there, which as someone who has previously used the facilities, I think is very welcome. And just so I don't take them all and leave Councillor Cusack with something to talk about, we've also secured funding from the state government for the Social Housing Investment Planning project, and that's to deliver a social housing project in 2018-19, and that's something that really excites me, and hopefully if we get it right might even form a model for other projects of this nature in our municipality.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Cusack, would you like to speak?
I hope I'm on. Thank you, Councillor Marshall, and I'm happy to second your motion. I won't cover all of the territory that's in the officer's report because it's quite extensive and people can read that. The thing that is most important about this from my perspective is that we have a council plan that is nested within a bigger plan which is about Moonee Valley 2040. And the whole point about 2040 is that it recognises the diversity of this community and where it might be in the future. How many times do people say, and it's in the papers just about every day of the week, that how come you didn't plan for school X? Why didn't you think about road Y? How come things aren't working the way they should? Well, things don't fall out of the sky. They need to happen over a period of time. And so to have a council plan that is actually part of a broader picture, first of all, recognises the diversity of the demands in this issue, in this community. I think it removes ambiguity from the questions that are the biggest ones for our community. And it also puts a map for the future. So lots of little things happen that build and aggregate to a bigger thing. And I must in all of that acknowledge the fabulous work of our staff, whether they are from the depot, and I'm not just saying it because you're there, or other people who are working in many of the other areas of endeavour within this council. And we see so much positive stuff that is coming through. And so this motion tonight is to recognise the work that has actually happened and the base that is being developed for the future around our neighbourhoods and the capacity for us to be able to respond to things. A couple of points that I would really like to point out, though, is that in a time of crisis that we've had in Melbourne over the last week or so, lots of people have been talking about mental health. This council has taken the opportunity and has put in place a teen mental health plan, and that is to get people to be able to talk about how they're feeling and to be able to sensibly say to a friend, listen, I think you need a leg up here, there's a way forward, here's somewhere you can go to. So to put into, be able to give people the words to be able to tackle it, and then secondly, the ways to take it forward in a simple way. I think the other things are about our green living projects, My Smart Gardens. I love the NAIDOC deliberation and the way that has gone, and especially the fabulous work that has gone on with the Wurundjeri Council elders over 5 Mile Creek. And I really did enjoy, I suppose, the what do you call it, the Winterfest and how that unfolded in Puckle Street. But what that has done is given the incentive and the initiative to a whole lot of other bits and pieces that are going to happen across our community. And finally, there's the question around community funding and how we address and allocate our budget in that space. And I think we're now hitting on a decent formula for it. All we've got to do is increase the quantum, and that'll be one of my objectives in the next little while.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Would any other councillor like to speak to this item? Councillor Gatchin-Ritchie.
Thank you. Just really briefly, the other councillors have been somewhat comprehensive. I just wanted to touch, obviously, one of the exciting things for me is around 2040 and the 13 neighbourhoods. And just for those playing at home, if you go to page 27 of your appendix, there is the implementation initiatives by neighbourhood, so you can see the things that are underway in your local neighbourhoods at the moment. So that's well worth having a look at.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Byrne.
Got a small chamber today, so I suppose I should say something. I suppose the big ticket item which comes up quite regularly in this chamber is the East Killer Leisure Centre, so just that's on track, but I'll be speaking a little bit more about that in the health and wellbeing, but obviously the biggest capital works project that we've undertaken, and obviously capital works we've obviously been spending a lot of money, which again we'll be speaking on later on in the agenda tonight. So obviously lots of work's been getting done, and it's good to have a plan that we're sticking to and achieving.
Thank you, Councillor. I shall put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Council Report 10.2 on tonight's agenda is the Financial Performance Report September 2018. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Cusack.
Happy to move the officer's recommendation as a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Byrne, thank you. Would you like to speak to the item, Councillor Cusack?
Just doing a bit of a repair there. This is a fairly straightforward report. It picks up on the critical issues that have obviously, if you're going to do something, you've got to have a quid in your pocket in order to be able to do it. And it talks about how we're actually accessing funds, where we're a little bit in front of the game, and where we're obviously looking to create the balance across the 12 months. And you can see that there are 4 critical reporting parts of this: the operating statement, the balance sheet, the cash flows, and capital expenditure. And for the most part, all are doing very well. Our forecast position is overall favourable. The overall in the annual forecast position is unfavourable, about 600,000, but in some senses it's not a position that we're going to suffer from extraordinarily, on the basis that there is, over the course of a year, a balancing process that occurs, and so we will find ourselves in a good position ultimately, and on track with our budget forecasts and projections.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Byrne, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. just to elaborate on what Councillor Cusack said, we are in a great position. Forecast annual surplus of 10.7 million compared to the budgeted surplus of 11.3, with an unfavourable variance of 0.6 million. Basically, we got more from fines than what we thought, but we didn't fill our childcare places. In short, that's how I'm reading this. It's all documented on the pages. So people remember to park legally, and if you need childcare, there's some available.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak to this item? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the third report is item 10.3. It's titled Increasing Open Space on the Maribyrnong River, Option to Relocate Depot Operations. Councillors, do I have a motion, please? Councillor Marshall?
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to move that Council 1 ceases negotiation with the owner agent for the property at 35 to 37 Tullamarine Park Road, Tullamarine, and advises them that Council will not be proceeding with this property. 2, notes that any decision in relation to the relocation of any part of the depot must provide a community benefit to the people of Moonee Valley. 3, notes that a depot transition advisory group has been formed in line with Council's EBA to facilitate consultation with employees in relation to the identification and transition to an appropriate site or sites for the depot. Employee concerns in relation to any future site or sites, including safety, are to be addressed via the Depot Transition Advisory Group. 3, commits to no employee losses as a result of the depot relocation. Sorry, have I got my numbering out of whack? Yeah. Sorry. No. Oh, so, okay, I'll keep reading.
Yes, keep reading, yep.
So that was number 4, commits to no employee losses of a result of the depot relocation. 5, requests further reports when suitable sites are identified for the depot relocation until such time as an appropriate location or locations is or are selected and endorsed by Council. 5, commits to the long-term provision of depot services for the benefit of the Moonee Valley community. And 6, commits to the Council's transfer station remaining in place for the foreseeable future. 7, I think that was.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cusack? Sorry, seconder. Okay. Councillor Marshall, would you like to speak to that item?
I will, Mayor. I might flag that I made an extension, though I'll try to keep it as brief as I can, but obviously there's a few issues to be considered as part of this one, and I hope my handwriting is pretty much illegible, so I hope you can read it, but let me know if you can't. So a few weeks ago now, Council approved a very high-level concept plan in relation to the Maribyrnong River Cultural Precinct, and it's fair to say that as a concept, it is really in its infancy. That cultural precinct plan set out some really high-level concepts and some precincts that might operate as part of the redevelopment of the Maribyrnong River Cultural Precinct to really be a great community space, and it set up a process to go out and consult with our community and stakeholders about what the spaces should look like. So I do have to say that it's a process that is in its infancy. We've only just kicked it off, and given that it has been a bit of a surprise to me that this report has come to us so quickly. I think when I read through the report, there are a few things that I'd like to comment on, and the report has a comment about the shift of the depot having been mooted for many years now, and there's a reference to the Maribyrnong River Master Plan from 2011. And the way it was just expressed, I was just concerned that people could unintentionally walk away with the wrong impression of where things are at, because I've been a councillor for over 6 years now, and I like to think I pay attention to things, and I can't recall the issue of the depot relocation having been raised once in my last council term. During this council term, it was mentioned almost in passing at a councillor planning session, but again, it was just sort of one of those thought bubble type things. It was only not until, from a councillor perspective, and certainly from this councillor's perspective, that the Maribyrnong River Cultural Plan precinct came to us at council those few weeks ago, that it really became a live issue. So again, I think the report indicates that officers have been looking at sites for a while. As councillors, and I can only speak for myself, obviously I wasn't aware of that, and it has come as a surprise to me that we're getting this so quickly. And I think, given we're the people who will be needing to make the decision, it's probably, again, if it's a surprise for us, I can understand why the staff also feel that it's a surprise for them. And I can imagine, certainly from the correspondence we've received, that staff feel that this has been rushed and they feel very uncertain about why it's just popped up now out of the blue. I think, again, having read the comments from staff and certainly having had people speak to me, there seems to be a broad sense that this is a space that would be great for community purposes. And I think there's an acknowledgement that, although I'm sure people would prefer to stay on site, that the depot will be moved to another site at some stage, or maybe at different sites. But when we look at the particular site that's on offer here, there are a number of very significant issues for me as I read through the report. And again, this issue around the sense from staff that they haven't been properly consulted, I think we need to keep in mind it's all right for those of us, as one of my family members would say, the shiny bums at Callaway Avenue. But for people, this is the work site that they will be going to every day. So we really need to be careful and make sure that staff are properly consulted in relation to that. There's obviously concern about the site being out of the municipality, and I totally get that. But I acknowledge too that officers have looked for a site within the municipality, and this is one of the difficulties we have. You need a large site if you're going to keep the whole depot together, and that is just the reality. So whether we would actually be able to find one site in Moonee Valley, I think that there is doubt about whether that would be able to happen. So, but again, we need to be talking with staff and saying, well, these might be the different options. It might be that we need to look at 2 sites if we can keep things in Moonee Valley. But at the moment, I just get the sense that perhaps some of these things haven't been thought through as fully as possible. One of the big things for me was the significant concern that this site is not fit for purpose, and to have any chance of actually making it fit for purpose, we would be spending millions and millions of ratepayer money. And again, the difficulty we have is that we've got some high-level estimates and descriptions about the type of fit-out that might be needed, but there were no detailed costings. And I suppose, again, maybe I'm a bit burnt by past experience, but we've had pavilion projects go from that initial high-level costings from 2 to 3 million to 6 to 7 million. The EKLC, which I know Councillor Ben will talk about later, a couple of years ago that started off at $27 million, and we're now at $50 million. And again, because once you actually get down into the detailed planning and look at things in significant detail, that often the costs are much more significant than what you expect. And that's my concern here. I just think that because of the haste with which we've had to try and pull that together, there's just too much uncertainty. And again, if we proceed tonight, we lock ourselves in, we lock the municipality and we lock the staff into a 30-year lease, and that is a very long term. And because we don't have the detailed costings and the detailed description of all of the work that needs to be done to make it safe and operational, I think, my concern is if the officers were to come back and say, well, this is actually going to cost us $8 to $10 million, if we've already locked in a lease, what are we going to have to do? We will have to commit to that, and we'll have no choice but to throw good money after bad. Of particular concern to me are the issues around health and safety that have been expressed to us. And I've got a dad who's very ill at the moment, in part due to the things he inhaled over many years on industrial sites. And as councillors, we need to be 100% comfortable that this site, or any site to which the staff are relocated, is 100% safe for them. And again, I'm sure that we would make a site safe, absolutely, but we just don't know. There are too many unknowns with this particular site. We have to be clear when we are committing to long-term leases and expenditure of ratepayer money that we've got the right site. I'm just not convinced that this is the right one. I'll just quickly, I'm mindful of the time, Mayor, so I'll sort of wrap up. There are a few other issues of concern to me, certainly the lack of details around a transition plan and how impacts on staff would be managed. I mean, the reality is, with any shift, there will be impacts on staff, so they have to be managed. But again, because of the haste with which this has come up, they just haven't been able to be finessed properly. I certainly hear concerns about the lack of communication, and I think as a group of councillors, we do pride ourselves on communicating with people, and I certainly acknowledge, again, because of the haste with which this has happened, that we would hope that that would be better. The lack of analysis on productivity with a shift to outside the municipality. Again, I think these are things that we need to be thinking through prior to entering into a 30-year lease, and that hasn't occurred yet. If this was an ideal site, without so many unanswered questions hanging over it, and with staff thinking, all right, well, you know what, this is okay, then you might actually have an argument to proceed, but it's far from ideal. And there are just too many unknowns, and we certainly need to speak with staff and look at what options there are. And it might mean that we need to look at more than one option. That might just be the practical reality because of what we need. But we need to be having those discussions. And my concern, and I'm mindful that this, you know, staffing matters are for the CEO, so we always need to keep that in mind. But that said, as councillors, I think we can have a concern about the impacts of staff morale. And, you know, as I was reflecting on this and trying to think about analogous situations, I was thinking, what would the reaction be as a group of councillors if we turned around and said, well, you know what, we could really use Callaway Avenue for a better use? Because in MV 2040, Callaway Avenue, this precinct is actually flagged for a different use. And if we sort of turned around and looked at that document and said now, all right, well, we're going to do that now. We've made that decision. That might be something that people thought was happening many years down the track, but let's do it now. Let's send our council office staff out to another site outside of Moonee Valley. It'll cost us millions of dollars, and it'll be into a site that we don't own. We're not exactly sure how much it will cost, but we will definitely make it fit for purpose. At the moment, it's just an empty shell. Imagine if we said that we'll give the staff a couple of weeks' notice, really, that this is going to happen, and a couple of weeks to get their head around it, and a couple of weeks for them to really come to terms with the fact that we're signing up to a 30-year commitment for them to shift. And I was thinking, would we actually be doing that? And the answer is no, we most definitely would be not doing that. The place would be in uproar. And I think we need to be mindful that we need to make sure we treat our depot staff with the same level of respect that all staff in Moonee Valley are treated with and should be treated with, and really work with them to make sure that we get a good outcome for the people of Moonee Valley and for all of the staff involved. So, councillors, I hope you see fit to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Cusack, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I certainly support all of what Councillor Marshall said, and the motion as it stands. Some reflections on this. I come from a slightly different perspective, maybe, I don't know, but my feeling is that I support the Maribyrnong Precinct project totally. It has my backing completely. I think it's a fabulous idea. It's a rearrangement and a realignment of property that's down there that can be put to significantly better use through judicious restructuring and placement of some of those resources. Having said that, and I note that in the report we talk about how the depot is 16,000 square metres, so it is a very significant player in the whole area, and it is one thing that has to be part of whatever shifts and changes in order to be able to make the thing work. The point is that it's not the only piece of the puzzle that has to change immediately. It could be, depending on where you stand, the game breaker that opens everything up, but there are plenty of other things that could be looked at and talked about and rearranged. So therefore, there's a question, as Councillor Marshall raised, about time, and why does time and short time frames have to be the dictator of what is best for the long-term operation of the depot the potential for the depot to work effectively within Moonee Valley, maybe in some different constructs and some different ways. The depot doesn't have to be closed on a particular date and everything disperse out of it. It might be that some things move out of the depot and at different times, and therefore you get a whole sort of timetable that could take several years. Why does it have to be very quick? So these are the issues that keep running through my mind. And I think also that in the end, if we can create an opportunity within the city of Moonee Valley to improve our return on investment in the depot, it means that there are opportunities for people who live within our municipality. I'm thinking of people who are doing apprenticeships and traineeships and the likes of that, and accessibility within their municipality, and the 20-minute city and the 20-minute work arrangements that we've all aspire to. And maybe this is one opportunity for us to be able to keep to that faith. The other things that occur to me is that, and again Councillor Marshall alluded to it, that we're not here to tell the CEO how to run his staff. However, I am very cognizant of the fact that the workers at the depot have, only as recently as the last day or so, or this morning, have voted quite unanimously that their concerns have yet to be addressed or met in such a way that they could possibly conceive of moving on and in the way that we're talking about. The other fact of life is that technology is changing quite dramatically, and that the options for the best options are not always apparent when you are trying to make a move that is like this, because what we're doing in this sort of move is like to like. Maybe we should be thinking about like to future, and where do the next bits come from, and how do we actually make those things work better. So, and the questions again of things like costings, variability, the potential for those things to go up and down over time very seldom go down, usually go up, are questions that are deeply concerning to me. I thought long and hard about this, and the one major issue in all of this is how do we obviously work well and sensibly as a council with our work, with our staff, but also the big issue about where's the cost benefit for all of our community. And the depot is not a place that should be just reactive. It's not just a place where you store stuff. It's a place where work actually happens, where ideas are generated, where staff come up with different ways of doing things, and where the notion, we're one of the last bastions, I know it sounds old-fashioned, but we're one of the last bastions with places where people can actually have a career and actually feel as if they can stay in a place and work their way through and start off in footy terms as the boots, the kid who gets the boots, cleans them up, and then eventually ends up playing in the first. And that's, I'll leave it at that. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? Thank you. Councillor
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might flag a tiny extension of time, but I will cut a bit out just to make a bit more brief. For me, I am supportive of the motion that we've been put. I think there are two key questions we're trying to answer here. The first one has been covered comprehensively so far, but do we believe the depot should stay in its current location? And for me, the answer to that has to be no. It is an incredibly large part of our area that should be returned to community space at some point, whether that is tomorrow or a couple of years from now or however long from now. We certainly are supportive of the master plan and ensuring that comes back to community use. So then for me, the second question to consider was about the proposed site and whether that's appropriate. And I had probably a couple of different themes to the ones that were mentioned earlier, but similarly, I consider them under a couple of themes. So in terms of the facilities, I have read through all of the feedback forms and am obviously of the understanding that the identified site doesn't have a number of the facilities which are either needed or wanted. and the ones that it did have were inadequate. That said, I've also moved staff a number of times, and whilst I do hear the concerns raised, I don't genuinely believe that most of those can't be addressed in the fit out of any proposed site. I am mindful that any other commercial site we consider, whether that's to lease, buy or otherwise, we will come up with similar timeframes in front of us and similar concerns in front of us about our ability to put hard numbers on the table. And I'm mindful that when something comes back to us in the future, we're going to be having similar conversations about not being able to have a hard figure and a hard number. So I do certainly see both sides of that argument. For me, the next factor was about the actual location. I do understand the concerns around leaving the current location, and I certainly see the uncertainty around travel time and costs. Personal changes and scheduling are really valid considerations for us, but I think it would be really foolish for any of us as councillors to put our hand on our heart and tell the depot staff that it will stay in its current location for a long time. I think for us, the site that has been proposed is an example of where things may end up. If it's not here, it will similarly be somewhere that is either on the edges of the municipality or just over a border. And I think that's something that we need to be realistic and open and honest about, because the side impact of that is that if we don't do that, the team and the family will be split up and will be in smaller sites. And for me, I really don't understand what impact doing either option would have on staff and teams, and that's something I'd really like to further understand before we go into the next site, or sites plural. I really think that for us as councillors, we need to be clear on whether there's a preference to stay together outside the municipality or to stay potentially within the municipality and potentially outside the municipality, but split up across smaller groups, and that's something we really need to have an understanding of. And I say have an understanding of, but at the same time, sometimes management have to make decisions that may not always be what staff want, so there has to be a level of realism and appreciation of that. But the third factor I considered was probably the one that was most important here, and that's about the process. The concerns around the process and communication have been heard by us all. We certainly share some of those concerns. I do see that we have an EBA that has a process for change and that staff get to participate in that process for change. And whilst it may not have gone as far as staff would have liked on this occasion, that certainly can be resolved through that advisory group moving forward. And that's important to me, that you have a group in place to provide feedback on those concerns. I certainly look forward to more holistic transition plans and some more thorough information coming forward, with the caveats I mentioned earlier about what amount of information may be possible in the timeframes. So with all those factors considered, I am supportive of the motion, but I do want to go back to what would our ratepayer want or expect, and I think the answer for the large proportion of our ratepayers is that they would like the area to be opened up for community use. So for those reasons, I am supportive of us looking to move the depot. Not for this location on this time, but I'm supportive for us to be open and honest about the fact that the depot will move at some point in the future and that we will continue the process to do that.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in support of this motion, and I'll keep it brief because I feel like pretty much everything's been touched on. There's been some things that's been said around the chamber tonight that I definitely agree with. There have been some points raised that I don't necessarily agree with, but overall I think this motion captures where we want to head. I suppose number one for me is that the depot space should be returned to open space. That for me, I think as quite a few of I think all the councillors have mentioned, Maribyrnong River, that precinct, is the crown jewel of municipality. It's something that we are very proud of, and it's space that I'm not really sure what the thinking was initially of putting a depot on such valuable land. In saying that, I'm not in favour of the current move to Tullamarine for various reasons. As someone who prides themselves, I suppose, as someone who lives and works in the municipality, in the same ward, I think I'd be somewhat of a hypocrite to say that everyone who wants to work for the community, wants to work for our city, needs to move outside of the city. In saying that, if we're looking to keep, I think as Councillor Gauci-Marici put it, keep the family together, I honestly believe the only space that we'll find will be outside of the city, and that's something that's quite realistic. And I think that there has to be a lot of consideration about, okay, well, does everyone go together outside of the city or potentially broken up with inside the city? And if it is within the city, it's more likely to be up in Rose Hill Ward. That's just being frank in terms of the cost of land. I can't see us buying back into Moonee Ponds. I would prefer the option of buying as opposed to leasing. I think that that's a better long-term benefit for the ratepayer. I think most ratepayers being asked would think that as well. In one of the questions that was asked earlier on, that our director brought up the long-term leases and what we have with the Essendon Football Club, and actually that actually rings alarm bells for me, because as you're quite passionate on, Councillor Mayor Sharp, it's probably one of the most underutilised grounds in the municipality, and is one of the most beautiful things in Essendon. But because of how things change over so many years, who would have ever thought when that lease was signed that Essendon Football Club wouldn't be playing out of Windy Hill? And yet now we're in a position where we're saying, oh gosh, we really just want to get kids out there. Essendon, funny enough, are in Tullamarine, and it's just not working. So it's a long-term lease. It doesn't really sit right with me. I don't necessarily think it was rushed. I just think that it's the wrong option for what the depot needs at the moment. Anywhere that we go is going to cost millions and millions of dollars to get fit for purpose. That's realistic, but I think not moving it will cost us more money in the long run. We have a commitment to the residents and ratepayers to ensure that our land is used appropriately, and land that size in that beautiful area I don't think should be used for a depot.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Byrne. As there's no opposition to Councillor Marshall's motion, I shall put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Okay, the next report on tonight's agenda is the Health and Wellbeing Action Plan Progress Report. Councillors, do I have a motion? Motion for Councillor Cusack? What are you moving, Councillor Cusack?
I'm moving the officer's recommendation as a motion.
And Councillor Byrne is seconding. Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Would you like to speak to the item, Councillor Cusack?
Yes. Why I'm giggling and why I was just a bit slow taking off was that I know that Councillor Byrne was very keen to say some things around this, so I'm very pleased that she's seconding this motion. Look, like in our first item on tonight's agenda, this is something of the report card of how the health and wellbeing plan is unfolding, and you can see quite clearly from the report that it is gathering a substantial head of steam, and that one of the significant issues that we do as a council is address questions, and those broad questions about what makes everybody basically happy. There is no... It's interesting because I'll digress for a second. The Irish Constitution has the word happy in it. The Australian Constitution doesn't. And maybe in our small little place down here in Moonee Valley, our notion of making people feel happy is a good thing. Anyway, back to our health and wellbeing plan. The plan is conceived through extensive consultation. It is working now to deliver on those particular flagship actions and so on like that, and how the council's strategic objectives are being met through it. Most of these actions are either in place, starting, or well progressed towards finishing, and a few things just need to be, I suppose, to be kicked along a little bit. But we have such a strong and sensible group of staff who are pushing and working in this space that I'm particularly proud of them. We have people who actually understand the breadth of notions that go to what creates a healthy community. That whole thing, if I can take it back to all those, to the basics, I suppose, which we were all taught about, the Ottawa Principles, 1987, and those substantial statements that were made then about food security, that were made about gender equity, that were made about discrimination, that were made about transport, and so on like that, are all the things that underpin this plan. And what is really good about this plan is it doesn't put them in silos, but it tries to integrate them so that one piece always has a knock-on effect to others. And so now you see in year one achievements, wonderful things that are where we're talking hard about endorsements of workplace gender equity position statement to address gender equity in our workforce. The connection of 13 service partners through convening the Moonee Valley Family Violence Network, which was raised earlier through questions. Activities to challenge gender stereotypes in early years. The opportunity to look at building stepping stone through the Stepping Stones pilot project to create micro businesses that are about self-esteem, that are about taking ideas and giving them a place in the sun so that they can actually grow, and that they would be the next part of it is the connections to other people. The training of staff, 23 staff in youth mental health is a significant, youth mental health first aid is a significant step. And of course, if Councillor Nation was here, unfortunately he's not, but the Rainbow Tick accreditation has been a very important part of this council's work over the last, several years, but coming to fruition in the last year. But we've got things like the simple things, the walk to school stuff, and there's 17 schools and 4,500 kiddywinks involved in that, completing over 80,000 walks. And so we move through a number of other physical things that will improve our capacity to link as a community, things like cycling paths and so on like that, and making walking a safer option. And I'm only going to say one more thing, is that from my pet point of view, is that we are, and I should have said it in the 10.1, but the Flemington Hub is a very important project. It will be a groundbreaker and changer for that whole community and into the broader community in such an important way over the years to come. I'll now pass on to Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Councillor Byrne?
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. I think Councillor Cusack has a portfolio for health and wellbeing Moonee Valley, and then I do the health and wellbeing for the Western region through Lead West. So we work together on quite a few of these things. So it's always exciting. There's just so much to speak about in terms of the health and wellbeing action plan and how it aligns with council's priorities. There's obviously only a limited amount of time, but it's great to see people in the gallery today so interested. I think that this really sits in under gender equity, and that all fits in here. Our main priority, when I get out the things, our priority one, gender equity and prevention of violence against women and their children, mental health, reducing inequalities, walking, cycling, livable neighbourhoods and employment all fit in under this health and wellbeing plan. So we have a plan, and again we're actioning it across all of our neighbourhoods that were endorsed through MV 2040. We just had a big debate in terms of what's going on down the Maribyrnong River with the depot, and I suppose one thing that probably wasn't touched on it as much, we were talking about how beautiful the area was, but we probably didn't speak about when that area gets opened up, how much that will again be able to improve the health and wellbeing of the municipality, both just being able to have that more fresh air, more running tracks. Everyone knows, you got your 4.1 around the river, and you've got your 2K track and your 1K track, and who knows what tracks are going to be invented when or if the depot eventually moves. So there's a wheelchair track, bike tracks. There's been some great bike lanes that have come through on Dinah Parade, which are written up in this report. Which are the nice green ones, really easy to follow for people up in East Keilor to get down to the creek, which have been great. And obviously the East Keilor Leisure Centre, which, again, new thing. Obviously a fabulous project. It comes up a lot in this chamber in regards to how much it's costing, but I think that by reading a report like this, it's quite clear to see that sometimes we don't always need to have that number figure in terms of how much a leisure centre is costing. We do have a number figure, but we don't need to go there. But what it's going to provide for the whole municipality, for the whole community, not only in terms of where people can do their swimming classes and where people can jump on an exercise bike, but where people can really have space to be able to meet with other community members, and really being able to have that social side from cafes and almost like a mini library type feel within the East Keilor Leisure Centre. It is such an exciting project, and something that this council will be extremely proud of going forward for generations to come, that the staff and the CEO and Steve and all of the directors and managers staff have put so much work and effort into. So there's so many things that I'm extremely proud of in this. The other one that I wanted to touch on was the Airport West Little Long Walk. It's so great to see the Airport West community get behind the Little Long Walk this year. For anyone who hasn't been before, I strongly recommend next year, and it'll be great to see other neighbourhoods within the municipality get on board next year in NAIDOC Week. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Any other councillor wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Gacci-Merici?
I will just briefly. Councillor Byrne alluded to the group in the audience, and I just wanted to give them a bit of a plug. You would have seen a couple of them ask questions at the start of the evening around family violence and gender equity, but the group in the audience are some of our most exciting women leaders in our community. Having had the privilege and the honour to present to them a couple of months ago, I really can't wait to see all the exciting things that you do in our community and the projects you implement, because you are an incredible group of women. So I think it's really great to see you here. So, and I look forward to seeing some of you on this side sometime. So.
4 out of 5 councillors at the moment.
Councillor Marshall, did you wish to speak? No? Okay. I shall put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. So the next report is the updated waste management plans, guidelines for planning applications and schedule of fees at 10.5. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Marshall?
Thanks, Mayor. I move a motion in the form of the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
There you go. Do you want?
Councillor Cusack? Thank you. Councillor Marshall, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. So what we have proposed here are some changes to our waste management plan guidelines, and really these are designed to deal with some existing gaps and deficiencies that have been identified. And I do thank the officers for being really proactive in relation to resolving these issues that have been identified. So these changes, came out of issues that have probably arisen mostly in the context of some of the larger developments that we've had. And we know that waste management is really important to our community in many different ways, but certainly it's a recurring theme during planning consultations. People saying, well, how are you going to concerned about the number of bins, about truck movements and those types of things. So if we look at what's proposed, some of the guiding principles set out are really about having a focus on reducing truck movements to the extent possible, particularly in activity centres, and there's some interesting stats in here about the total number of movements for the week in certain sites, and they're high, and that's the reality. And these will hopefully help us reduce over time those movements in and around the activity centres in particular. They also set out some minimum standards and some preferred design outcomes too, because there are ways that you can manage waste that don't impede on amenity and that provide appropriate design outcomes, if you like. They deal with what has been a significant issue for Moonee Valley around basement collections and how we resolve those issues, and also set out restrictions in relation to days and times for collections, again to minimise the impacts on surrounding areas and amenity issues that may go along with large numbers of waste pickups. One of the things that I'm very pleased to see is that we're introducing a fee for where people have to resubmit their waste management plans. I think it is fair to say that it takes officers a significant amount of time to actually assess these plans, and if people can't be bothered first time around actually submitting proper waste management plans, then you know what, they should have to have a fee for resubmission. So I think it's entirely appropriate, and there's a fee range proposed which will be based obviously on the complexity of the particular application in question, and hopefully, as has been the case with our construction management plan resubmission fee, will be a disincentive for people and might make them really get it right first time around. So as I said, I thank officers. We considered this some time ago, but I think it's really important to make sure that we are updating wherever we identify deficiencies and gaps, and so I'm pleased to see this come before us today.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Cusack, would you like to speak?
Well, obviously I endorse all of what Councillor Marshall said. Waste has often been one of those matters that developers have seen as very much a second-rate issue. It's about the bricks and mortar and getting the place locked up nicely and getting the people to move in. And then somehow, magically, waste becomes an issue after the event, when the developers, have, as much as they possibly can, have nicked off. And all sorts of issues happen as a consequence of that. And we see that on a regular basis around our neighbourhoods. As much as a sterling effort is put in place by all of our own staff on this space, and other people in their generous mood also try to tackle it. So now it's not just a backseat issue, it is now front and centre, and that's where I believe it really obviously needs to be. We're in a process now of a waste revolution in Australia, so getting these plans right is a really important part of how those things link together. And we have now, through this framework, an opportunity to seriously put into plans and make these plans work in that context and where things might go to down the track. Finally, I think the Councillor Marshall raised the question of fees, and I like the fact that she didn't just talk about them as in it was important to talk about the cost in times and effort for council and all the rest of it, but again, keeping in that theme, there is an educative process that's associated with fees, and it's about actually making these things work. And if you go down the old Blanche du Bois line of Streetcar Named Desire, well, I've always relied on the kindness of strangers. It ain't going to work in this context. And what we need to do is be really on top of this and taking a lead. So our council and our streets and our neighbourhoods and all the residents who are connected through a very different style of living in apartment styles and so on like that actually feel a comfort. And again, back to my earlier point about a notion of happiness in their neighbourhood and in this very special neighbourhood that might be on the 20th floor of a building. And so what occurs there with their neighbours is very intimate and well outside of the ken of any of us who are sitting down on ground zero. So it's the most important piece of work.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Any other councillor wish to speak? No? I shall put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next council report is 10.6, relating to the Quinn Grove Reserve synthetic soccer pitch. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Byrne?
Happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Gatchi-Marici. Would you like to speak to the item, Councillor Byrne?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report reads really quite well, as already touched on. I wonder how many times I can actually get the East Keilor Leisure Centre into one meeting tonight. It's going to be a few. But obviously this is one of the Queen Grove backs onto the East Keilor Leisure Centre, and with the redevelopment that is going to be commencing in February, it's obviously going to disrupt the surrounds, and one of the surrounds is the synthetic soccer pitch, which has been quite well utilised for many years, but as a result of that does have some wear and tear due to the all the construction that's going on and what's going on with Belgravia Leisure. It's going to come back into council hands. We need to come up with costs for it. That's what this is. Obviously they're not getting what they originally had, being next door to a leisure centre, and we I suppose have ensured that our prices are appropriate for what people are buying, what people are using it for. We obviously want our fields and courts and everything to be used well for males, females, children, everyone. So we do need them to be affordable, so it's good to see we're reducing prices on things, which is great, and we'll obviously be looking at the long-term planning of the soccer pitch going forward. But yes, this is obviously temporary based on the fact that the leisure centre will be being knocked down in February and we have to do something, and I think the officer's report is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Gatchi-Marici, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Just briefly, obviously I am pleased to see that the rates only go until the facilities are open. I am mindful of the investment we are making in that area, and I would expect to see our rates reflect that once those facilities open, whether they are the cheapest in the region or not. And I am pleased to see that there is actually availability, because the feedback that we get from many of our sports clubs is that they would like to access the facilities more. So I'm sure that there will be a few phone calls tomorrow to see what gaps are available.
Thank you. Councillor, any other councillor wish to speak?
I'm happy to say something on the gaps. Or was that dissent? I don't know.
I'll just put that to the vote, I think. Yeah. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the next report is 10.7, and Councillor Byrne has a conflict. Hence, under 3.3 of protocol, due to not being able to maintain a quorum on this item, I direct that this item be considered at the next available meeting. So we shall move on to 10.8. It's the item response to notice of motion 2017 to 2017-09, Crown Street Stables Social Enterprise Review. Councillors, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'm happy to move the officer's report.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Any other councillor? Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Marshall, thank you. Councillor Cusack, would you like to speak to that motion?
The development of the Crown Street Stables as a resource for our community became quite a vexed issue within council. We went through a process of seeking expressions of interest and awarding a tender to run this, and one of the successful tenderer was council itself, and at the time I clearly had concerns about how that was going to ever operate, and I thought that we might run down a blind alley. In some senses, this whole process has actually been very good, because it's been very educative about how things can actually operate in a council enterprise or a social enterprise under the wing of council. In the whole of this, the whole idea, however, behind this report is about continuing to strengthen Crown Street and to get it to work and continue to improve and get it to work better. The great breakthroughs that have been there have been clearly in the opportunities for employment for people with disabilities, and the great opportunity for people to not only learn something on the spot, but to have somewhere to go to, which is the next step. And I can't say how much that warms my heart to see that actually happening, and I really, really am impressed with it. And it's certainly something, a kernel of something that we should never lose out of Crown Street, no matter what it does or where it goes to in the future. I think that there are opportunities for Crown Street to create really, now that it's gone through this initial start-up period, for it to look towards strong partnerships and collaborations within the community, to create new opportunities for people to expand their options and so on like that. And anybody who's got ideas around that, I would love to see them brought back into council and back through Crown Street to have that kind of discussion. But there's now built within this recommendation good, strong ideas for making sure that things continue to improve, that we get an annual reporting process that is well structured, that we actually understand what is going on, and as I said before, that the way the cafe can maybe move to a new level is terrific. And of course, point 3 of the recommendation is one that I'm more than happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Councillor Marshall, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Mayor. I think, like Councillor Cusack, it's fair to say that I remember when this tender was awarded, and I didn't participate in that decision, but had reservations. No, that's right. And it's really interesting to look at how Crown Street has changed, and it probably has shifted from that initial intent. But that's actually okay, and I think as I've really been reflecting on what we want it to be, we want it to be the things that it is now and just continue to improve and continue to expand on those. And you look at the opportunity for people with a disability to have those training chances that they just wouldn't have anywhere else. I mean, how do you put a dollar figure on that? You look at the fact that people can go down there, can get a coffee, can sit with their kids, can hire the space, and again the lift access that we're providing will just open up to a whole range of different uses. Obviously, again, in light of the enormous success of the Flemington-Kensington Festival of Ideas, and I think you just think about the way that Crown Street can and should continue to be used as a space for art in whatever form that is. I think, again, for me, some of the stuff in here is about looking for opportunities to improve, and we should be looking always for opportunities to improve. And if we can look at the hours of trade and see what we can do there, I think that that will really open up the Crown Street experience to a whole new range of people who might not otherwise have it. So sometimes change is good, and in this instance, noting that I would say it has shifted in some ways from how it was proposed to originally operate. What we have is we have a beautiful facility, a wonderful park in the heart of one of our most closely connected communities, and it's just an incredibly valuable asset for us as a council to have.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Any other councillor wish to speak? No? I shall put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. The next item is 10.9, response to petitions, McPhail and Sherborne Streets, traffic issues, and Buckley Street crossing. Those are motions.
Now, Mayor, I won't be participating in this matter for reasons disclosed previously.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Marshall. So as that has been declared, we don't have a quorum for 10.9. So again, under 3.3 of protocols, due to not being able to maintain a quorum on this item, I directed this item be considered at the next available meeting. Thank you. 10.10, the next item relates to proposed discontinuance of road abutting 7 Edsel Street, Airport West. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Byrne?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Marshall, thank you. Councillor Byrne, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whilst I wasn't in support of this application when it came through as a planning application 12 months ago, a part of the conditions when we approved it was this discontinuance of the land at the front, which most people wouldn't have even known was council land. You would have thought that it would have been it's on the block, so it's not really a nature strip as such. So we're just getting the wheels in motion.
Thank you. Councillor Marshall, would you like to speak to the item?
Look, I do agree. It's like many other of these types of pieces of land. You wouldn't think that we would be in this situation looking at discontinuance and sale. As Councillor Byrne indicated, this is to kick off that statutory process, and there'll be a notice that goes out in the local paper, and people who want to have the opportunity to submit in relation to this will have that opportunity to do so, and then the ward councillors, if it's required, will have the committee. So, it's just that process that we commence in these situations.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Would any other councillor like to speak on this item? No? I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. So 10.11, the next item is the report on our audit committee. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Gatchie-Marici, thank you.
To move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cusack. Thank you. Councillor Gatchie-Marici, would you like to speak to the item?
It's fairly self-explanatory, and I think I, at the previous meeting, gushed about how much I like audit committee, so I will withhold that again this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cusack, would you like to speak?
Can you follow that?
Pardon me. I'd like to endorse the expansive discussion that has been entered into by the mover of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Any other councillor wish to speak? No. Councillor Byrne, yes?
Just quickly for people listening at home that might not have the report in front of them, the things that were discussed in the September were verbal update from the CEO for organisational matters, OH&S update, procurement annual report, risk management update, internal audit status update, and a 3-year strategic internal audit plan. I do love audit committee, maybe not as much as Councillor Gatchie-Marici. I don't think anyone can have the same amount of passion for it as she does, but maybe one day. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor? No? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. Okay, 10.12 on the agenda is titled Purchase of an Eductor Truck. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Marshall? Yes.
Yes, Mayor. I'm happy to move a motion in the form of the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Cusack. Councillor Marshall, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, I will, and thank you for pronouncing it, because I was doing it in my head, trying to remember, was it adductor or eductor, but no, adductor, thank you. So this is basically a motion to approve the purchase of an adductor truck and utility with the cost of about $852,000. It's a significant amount of money, but it is fair to say as councillors, and I think I would speak for all of us here, we get a large number of queries about drainage issues, and we've had one just recently, and they are frequent, particularly again in areas too where we've got older drainage. And this is a situation where a business case has been developed showing that if we go down this path to have this truck and to be able to provide both proactive and reactive drainage services that will basically there'll be a saving to council of about $1.3 million over the life of the truck. And again, there are environmental and community benefits that are set out too. So I'm happy to go down this path. I think it's very sensible. Our drainage issues will only continue again, and I think it's really important that if we have this ability to be able to run our work program in a very efficient way, to have the facilities ourselves, we've still got the ability to actually call on contractors for those peak times, but again, hopefully this will enable us to really reduce a lot of the cost to council through those contracting fees.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Cusack.
Anybody who lives at the bottom of a hill or a swale in Moonee Valley will be well aware of what happened on Cup Day, and we were awash all over the place, and Maribyrnong ward, I can speak for, had lots and lots going on there. The big issues there, of course, are what the plane trees are doing in terms of dropping everything into the drainage system and so on like that. So anything that works to change and turn that around has got my absolute blessing. I think that there's a great deal of common sense in having this machine in place, and or this whole machine and the ute in place. I'm very pleased about the return to council in terms of it, in terms of the 1.3 million over the life of the machine, and I think that the one really important thing that pops into my head is that we have, through this, the capacity to answer quickly and effectively and efficiently where issues and where points are raised by people, and not having to keep putting things on a rotation or into a programmed process whereby we're waiting on other contractors to do things and come to the party, so we can move effectively and efficiently in this space. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Gattimurchi.
Just very briefly, without sounding like Councillor Cusack, the old adage of there are two certainties in life of death and taxes. As a councillor, if you told me that there was a certainty of a weekly phone call about drainage, I would have laughed, but there genuinely is. And certainly I am really pleased to see us being proactive about a better and different way of thinking about how we respond to that. Certainly I'm sure that Strathmore, where I probably get the most phone calls and emails from, and Strathmore Heights in particular, it will be very pleased to see this rolled out. I certainly think that there are things that we are much better outsourcing, and there are things that we can and should do a portion of in-house, and this is one of them. So I'm really pleased to see the return that will be there for council in terms of dollars, but in terms of our ability to service our community and our response times, I think that's just as valuable. So,
thank you, Councillor. Councillor Byrne, did you want to say something, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm supportive of this motion. When I first had a look at it, I wasn't necessarily, but the report was quite convincing, and listening to everyone around the table, I suppose my concern is, again, it's going into our cash reserves. I would have much preferred to have seen this come through at budget time. I know that I suppose it didn't, the report's only just been done now, and so we didn't necessarily have it, but it's, I don't know, how low are we going to get our cash reserves, I suppose. It's just one of those things. I like to have a bit of money left in the bank, but that's just me. But I think the idea of what we're getting for it is quite good. And yes, hopefully we get a few less phone calls, especially after episodes like Melbourne Cup Day, which I'm sure we all received numerous calls. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I shall put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so the next item is notices of motion, and we don't have any tonight. Councillors, do we have any urgent items of urgent business, please? No, thank you. Do any councillors have anything they'd like to report in their roles as delegates? No, thank you. The next item of business is confidential reports, and there is one confidential report this evening. Councillors, can I have a motion that the meeting be closed to the public under section 89(2)(d) of the Local Government Act 1989 to consider confidential reports, please? Councillor Byrne, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Cusack, thank you. Thank you. I'll put that to the vote. Thank you. That's unanimous. So this is where we say goodnight to our members of the public gallery and those watching the meeting on our live feed. Before I go, or we go, I'd like to remind you of our next public forum, which is on Tuesday the 20th of November at 6 p.m. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.